Okay, my name's Jeff Green. I'm with CBC Hamilton, and I'm here with Tracy Bantleman, the wife of Neil Bantleman, who was sentenced to 10 years in Indonesia for a crime he says he didn't commit. Tracy joins us here from Jakarta. How are you, Tracy?
I'm pretty well, thank you.
Can we have a bit of the latest update on where Neil's at? I saw there was a letter, an open letter to the Prime Minister calling this case extortion, as well as a few ongoing cases. Can you give us a bit of an update from Jakarta?
Well, it's been almost 3 weeks since verdict day, and Neil and our legal team have filed a notice of appeal to the High Court. That's just basically a piece of paper that says we will be filing a full appeal in the coming weeks, and our legal team is preparing the memorandum of appeal, but also still waiting for both verdicts in the case, because essentially it's very different here in Indonesia. You don't get the formal written document or the verdict on the day. There seems to be a couple of weeks delay in getting that to our legal team, and you do really need that document to then write a full and accurate memorandum of appeal. Not necessarily everything that was said on verdict day might you see in the actual written form, so we need to be sure that we are giving an argument to every single part of the verdict that is in written form.
In addition to that, there is a civil case, which has long been said to be kind of the heart of this case. It's a $125 million lawsuit against the Jakarta, I guess, intercultural school, but formerly called Jakarta International School. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, this is the lawsuit that the first mother initially launched against the school and actually the Ministry of Education here in Indonesia. And later, the PT-ISS cleaning company, ISS International, was added as a defendant to the case successfully in the court. But this civil case has been running alongside the criminal case, and in fact, it was delayed at one point before the verdict in Neil and Ferdy's case, and I think that just shows how symbiotic those two cases are and how they are perhaps the judges at the South Jakarta District Court are working together to manipulate the outcomes.
Is there any indication that that civil case will be delayed as well for the two other cases you mentioned? Ferdinand, the teaching assistant that is also convicted alongside Neil, his wife, filing a case against the three parents that initially filed the lawsuit, as well as the doctors who testified against Neil and Ferdinand.
Yes, I think it was just last week that Ferdinand's wife, Siska, went to the National Police to file a report against the three families and three Indonesian doctors for perjury. We have reason to believe that the doctors that assessed some of the children in the case did not do thorough and complete medical examinations, and therefore the results that they have given under oath are inaccurate and misleading.
So now that we're all caught up, what reason do you have to believe that? I know what you've told me the entire time we've been talking throughout this case, but do you have any empirical evidence or reason that?
I know what's been said in court. And essentially, for the second and third boy, what was said by these doctors in Indonesia was that two of the alleged victims had what you would call a funnel-shaped anus, which is science that has been debunked for years, and that also they had each of the boys had a small scar. Now, these medicals were done in late June, well after the families had withdrawn their children from the school and well after the school year was over. So we noticed too, though, in court, our lawyers picked up on some comments made by some of the doctors regarding the procedure and the medical, and they had indicated that the boys were crying and screaming so that they could not do the full anoscopy. Well, if they couldn't do the full anoscopy, we're not sure how they would see these scars that are further inside the body of these children. that are apparently similar to the characteristics of sodomy. So essentially, they've said that they've done these full anoscopies, but they didn't, because in their testimony in court, they were saying that they couldn't proceed because it was too painful for the children. I think the legal team discovered this because in Singapore, there was a medical on one of those boys that was done under full, under the supervision of a doctor who would, of course, properly have anesthetized the boy, and so the boy would have felt no pain. He was under a full examination was done on the boy, and no signs of sodomy were found. So comparing those two reports, there's quite a large difference in the analysis, and of course, it seems as though perhaps the doctors in Indonesia were not following the proper procedure for performing an anoscopy on a young child, to then have given the results that they were given in the court. And
in Indonesia, that defense or that examination from Singapore was completely thrown out. Is that correct?
Well, it was said that it should be waived because it was only a photocopy, but it was also signed and acknowledged by the Indonesian embassy in Singapore. So it's beyond us why that medical was not allowed to be submitted as evidence, but none of our evidence that our defense team submitted was accepted. Most of the evidence was waived, and the judge cited that there were criminal procedural code violations, and those were the reasons why most of our evidence was waived. The Singapore medical, the judge had also referenced on verdict day that Indonesia doesn't have any bilateral relations with Singapore, so they're not required to accept medicals done in a different country.
So that kind of brings us to now, and you had sent me the Jakarta Post opinion piece that called this case kind of a kangaroo case, a sham trial. What are your thoughts on seeing that in print and seeing what's happened with Neil?
Well, it's nice to see that there are media that are independent in Jakarta that are being able to voice their opinion and write about the case from a more objective point of view. I think more and more individuals in Indonesia are starting to see the irregularities of the case. And after hearing some of the rhetoric from verdict day, it's become more clear that the decision was made before the trial even began. There was bias in the trial. We knew that going through the trial, but we were hopeful. I think now we just have to set our sights on the High Court appeal, because I think at these next levels of court, High Court and Supreme Court, is where a lot of these misinterpretations of the law or injustices are rectified. Do you have a timeline on that High Court appeal at all? I know you're still getting the decision back, so. Yeah, I think because we're still waiting for both verdicts, we won't be able to file the memorandum of appeal until that happens. I've heard that a High Court decision can take anywhere from 3 to 5 to 6 months, and then Supreme Court can take a similar length of time. I think the shortest turnaround time would be approximately 3 months, but really there's no, it's not like the first level of trial or court where we were given a verdict day. So it's a matter of waiting and being patient, and also continuing to cooperate as we have all through this process with the authorities in Indonesia. You know, we essentially just want the truth to be heard and justice to prevail. Neil and Ferdy are innocent. They did not do anything wrong. The allegations are absolutely absurd, and everybody can see them. And we just hope that their rights are protected and the innocent are protected at this next level of court.
What access do you have to Neil now?
I can see him if I want to on a daily basis, but that's during the weekdays. So I usually leave fairly early in the morning to travel out to Chippenham. It's a little bit far from where I'm staying, so it's over an hour and a half commute to get there. And then there's a procedure for entering the prison, bag check, a body search, and then I'm able to see Neil for up to an hour and a half, almost 2 hours for a visitation, at which time I have to leave. And if I want to come back in the afternoon, go through the same process. So it is extremely tiring, it's exhausting, but I really feel that my husband requires the support, and because I'm able to go and visit right now and support him, that the strength that we can garner from each other's company is helping us get through this situation. And I think, the same goes for Siska. She's traveling out to the prison as well. The four of us are finding strength in each other and just trying to stay focused on the next steps and moving forward.
What's his headspace like right now? I mean, we talked before, and we always had 30 days to look forward to, or he had, this judgment day to look forward to. There was always kind of a milestone, and now I think the last time he said there was kind of like an abyss. At least that's what his brother Guy said. There's just nothing.
I think essentially for Neil, he is relieved that the trial is over. It was an extremely exhausting process. It was so stressful to have to face that panel of judges day after day after day and hear these false allegations repeated over and over and over again, and continue to have to fight for your innocence. It was as if all along Neil has been seen as a guilty party, and that has a lot to do with how the media presented the case early on. I think public opinion swayed quickly to the side of guilty, and they've been fighting for their innocence since the allegations were first made public. I think now, I did ask him today, what would you want me to say if somebody asked how you were doing? And Neil said he's anxiously awaiting the decision of the High Court and his freedom.
You mentioned a long time before, when he first went into jail, he's strong, but he's still fragile. Is he in that state, or is he kind of transformed over this past 9-12 months of this process?
Mm-hmm. Well, he's resiliency is something that it's a skill that we all learn from our experiences, and I think his resiliency is growing stronger, and he has perspective, and he knows that we have to keep moving forward in order to end this ordeal. He's taking a lot of solace in reading books. He just finished, of course, probably a lot of people do this, he just finished Nelson Mandela's biography, and he's read a lot of books on people in similar situations, and they've given him some solace and comfort and strength and wisdom for moving forward. So he's avidly reading, exercising, and he's also giving some English lessons to people inside the prison. So he's doing the best he can to give service to others and service to himself, and keeping his spirits high. And that's just who he is.
And what about for yourself? What happens next for Tracy?
I think we take it step by step. We're trying to get some family and friends to come and visit. Neil hasn't seen his family for over 2 years now. We were meant to go back to Canada over a year ago when these allegations were first made, and try to continue to keep his spirits up by maintaining that visitation of friends and family, even here in Jakarta. Try to set something up so that we can keep them focused, because they won't be leaving the prison. I think even that just day-to-day routine of having to leave to go to trial and actually getting to step outside the doors was something positive. But now we're going to need to bring people to them to make sure that they do keep their spirits up.
Are you going to be staying in Jakarta?
I will stay in Jakarta to support my husband. That's my first priority. I am still employed with the school, and will continue to work alongside the school and supporting my husband. And it's almost the end of the school year, so we'll see where things go by the time we get to July and August. And like I said, my first priority is supporting my husband and being an advocate and reaching out to as many people worldwide as we can to bring attention to the injustice.
How have you changed throughout this entire ordeal?
I think, you know, I always felt like I had the capacity to have some perspective in situations, but I've learned so much about how the world really works, and particularly how life is for most Indonesian people. And I think that's given me an even greater perspective and strength, because if, you know, Neil and Ferdy are not the only ones facing injustice. And I think that we've always felt for the people of Indonesia who have supported us so fully throughout this situation. And I just feel so sad for them. And in knowing that, you know, if this can happen to Neil, it can happen to them, it can happen to anyone. I've grown very close to a lot of my colleagues and friends here. And like I said, the people that have come to support Neil that are Indonesian have shown me so much about humanity and care and concern and compassion, that that's made me a better person for the people that I've had around me. They've shown me how important family and relationships are with the people that are in our life. So in that way, I feel blessed, but you know, I really wish this situation were over.
Do you feel like you're walking on a tightrope or eggshells, walking that fine line between not trying to say too much harsh criticism, but at the same time call on the Canadian government to help and call on the Indonesian government to revisit this?
Yeah, it's, you know what, I actually remember when this whole case broke out, I was at the hairdressers, and this woman has been living in Indonesia her whole life. She did some training in the US and had some time away as an expat. And she said, you know, Tracy, she said, you're never gonna say anything right. Nothing you say is gonna sound right, so just accept that. And, you know, I think even on verdict day, I remember hearing things and opinions and judgments of the court that didn't make any sense to me. And I do continue to struggle a little bit with, you know, making demands on the international front in terms of the Canadian government, and then also knowing the culture of Indonesia and knowing that a quiet approach is often better. It's such a fine balance. And so I try to be as diplomatic as I can so that I don't offend anyone, but at the same time, you know, it's very difficult not to speak out and shout out against injustice.
And that style of argument has never worked in kind of Southeast Asia, the style of, you know, whoever's louder doesn't really win that argument there. Is that correct?
No.
For the international teaching circuit, how does this, how closely are they watching this? Are they contacting you, and how does this impact, you know, couples like you who probably got preference when you move to different cities to kind of be on that international teaching circuit?
I think, first of all, we've had an immense amount of support from the international teaching cohort, and that was even early on. We were starting to hold vigils in support of Neil and Ferdy when the allegations broke out and when they were first detained. And there were schools from all over the world that sent photos of their vigils in support of Neil and Ferdy. We continue to get that support to this day. And there have been stories printed in the teaching and international education magazines and publications that go out to teachers worldwide about the story. There is an incredible amount of concern for international teachers in taking positions in countries where there is a questionable rule of law. You know, and with these child abuse cases where someone can just roll up and make an allegation and end up, you know, getting a 10-year verdict and sentence out of that allegation is quite scary. I think people are thinking twice about where they're moving. There are people that have told me that you know, they might not consider staying much longer in Indonesia that are teaching here now. But at the same time, like I said, you know, the issue of, you know, child abuse and these allegations are going to continue to come forward in international settings where you're less protected. And I think the community is going to have to come up with some checks and balances and strategies to make sure that teachers are protected.
Well, I think that's kind of an advocacy role that you've taken on unwillingly, been voluntold for that. So thank you for joining us, Tracy. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jeff.
Take care.